think it's going to be a great challenge for our inside guys rushing.
How's Harold doing physically? And do you think the time off can help him there?
I think it did. Today was the first time in a couple of weeks get to see him run around. When we put the film on, we'll see exactly how it looks. But he's been rehabbing his butt off, and he's been in this game long enough, knowing how important the playoffs are and how hard it is to get to the playoffs. And so he hasn't taken a day off since we let him rest. So we'll see how it looks today, and we'll talk to the training staff and Braves, and we'll go from there.
How big would it be to potentially get him back this week?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, he's team captain for a reason. Just his presence on the field, and like I always say, how smart he is, and how serious he takes his game and studying, and like I said, just his presence would be huge. We've missed having him out there.
Get an update on
how he acts, but the game's slowing down for him. And I think you can see that when he rushes and he sets the edges, and he's starting to see things faster. And like I said from the beginning, I'm just happy about that kid. I'm excited. He's a Patriot, and I think the sky's the limit for that kid. He's really something special.
Feels like Anthony is making more and more plays as the season goes along.
Yeah.
Is that comfort within the system? Is he doing anything differently?
No, I think just with some guys, being banged up, and there's certain packages. There's things that Ant does really well. Starting with the run game, how big, he's strong. He's another kid that's smart. Things come easy to him, but just setting that edge and you get these tackles that are a little bit lighter. He's got his power, he's got his strength, and he's no one that's played this game for a while, and he's really accepted his role, playing more. And there's a couple games that he started, got to go out there and start and play, and I couldn't be fired up more about him. I think it was last week or the week before, I got player of the game on defense, and so but he's just tough, man. He's an old school throwback outside linebacker, man. I told him he could have played with me back in the days, but he's been such a huge part of what we do, and couldn't be more happy about how he's playing.
with Elijah.
He's quiet. He sits back and he learns. He's not a loud vocal guy. He's not one of these guys that's going to show off and wear all this stuff and talk all this noise. He sits back. He studies. He loves the game of football. You can tell he takes it serious. I asked him the other day, I think it was Christmas or Thanksgiving, on all these days. At this time of the year, it's all, hey, how you doing? Good. It all comes together. But so what are you gonna do? And he said, I'm gonna go home and make a pie. I'm like, of course. Like I could see you wearing an apron and the girl making a pie and stuff like that. So that's just kind of how he is, man. And I dig it. I think he's got really a bright future ahead of him, man.
It feels like you mentioned a couple of guys in that room, and it feels like there's a couple of old school kind of throwback type of guys. Is that something that's kind of created organically, or was there a guy that people are flocking to, or where do you think that comes from?
Their parents. I think you're born in Oak or you're born in Willow. I think that's kind of with toughness, and you can say you can coach it into them, and you coach it into them, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes, but it's just born in you. And those are the type of players you look for, and that you hope as you get as a coach and you bring into a room. Casey's the same way. He brings some toughness to that room. And when you get guys like Harold and older guys and stuff like that, it makes it easier in the room. I tell you that.
Caleb wants to mention how you helped his game with the amount of film study you do, being able to give him tips. Is it a challenge working with maybe older, but not the first time obviously, but is there a different challenge with older guys where they've seen more and you kind of have to maybe dig a little deeper to give them some tips like that? Yeah, I kind of just stay how I've always been. I think with guys like him, I think it's a great example for young coaches. You just got to be on top of your stuff, right? You got to, these guys that's played a long time, they can smell BS, right? And so, one, I just love the game. I love staying up. My wife would probably tell you probably too late at night at times, but I love looking at an offense. I love breaking them down, and it's kind of like a puzzle, just like humans. We all have DNAs, and so do offensive coordinators. And so, and just wherever it can make a play, one play can change a game so quick. And if I can give them something that they can read a little bit faster, or something that they can see, and you don't want to make them turkey necks out there either, looking around and all this different stuff. But there's certain things that can help us on the edge. If we can see it and identify it and communicate it, but that's kind of our job as a coach. But when you have older guys like that, then you got to get to a point where they're looking at it and they're studying it, and it's just not stuff that I'm staying up late. Being a professional
and stuff. That's part of the old school stuff, that I'm talking about is these guys that take their job serious and not just go home and get on to Twitter and stuff like that and video games. And so those guys, they're professionals.
So who was baking the pies?
Oh, you just gotta ponder. I asked him,
ponder's
I
the
asked him, I
pie.
said, what are you gonna do for Christmas or
Sure.
Thanksgiving? He said, I'm gonna go home and make a pie. And I said, that's about right. I just
Uh-huh.
been doing something like that.
I don't know if anyone's asked this, but I know Harold Landry's been gutting out
Mhm.
injuries all year in playing. Missed the last game. What's going to be like having him back in there?
Oh, it's gonna be big. And I think one thing with Harold is like you said, he's been banged up a little bit all year, and there's certain things that people just don't realize and how tough that kid is, and it came to the decision in the last couple weeks just to rest him to get him some rest. Kind of forced it on him, because he wants to be out there. But to get him back, and he never missed a day. He was here in meetings like he was preparing, had all his notepads out and his pens and different colored pens and all that stuff. It's just big for the room, but to see him out there running around, I'm not gonna lie, it makes you feel better as a coach, feel a little more comfortable, knowing that you got one of your best players coming back, and hopefully we'll see how it looks. And like I said, talking to trainers and stuff like that, and Braves, they make those decisions. But just his presence, man, it's big.
When you mention an offense's identity, what are the things that you're looking for, and how do you maybe avoid paralysis by analysis, where you just look at so much stuff and kind of just maybe jumps together?
Yeah, I think once I just start just watching, I got a certain routine that I do. I get into all that. And if I start reaching and start looking for things, all right, I said there's just too much, I separate it. I just kind of look at the end of the night. In the night, I look at all my notes and say, all right, okay, this is going to help them. This might be too much. Or it might be Thursday. I said, there's too much. They're looking around too much, right? And then you just got to look at a coach and say, all right, I just got to pull all this stuff. This might be one-timers or two-timers. This is what they do. Right. We've got to be athletes and play football. You got to react to things. That's what it is. But again, it's funny when NFL is a copycat league, a lot of things that you look at. And so it's funny, the further you get in the season, it's almost like you repeat yourself. These guys, they'll start understanding backfield sets, and these young guys and start understanding putting all this stuff together. You get smarter as a player as you go towards the end of the season, and it should start really, like Ponder starts slowing down. He said the other day, he's like, I feel like it's the same thing every week on some things. It is, right? And so that's what's fun about it when they really start learning the game of football. Anybody can get up there and just say, hey, all right, this is what we're doing on defense and this, and just do the, PowerPoint install. But to teach them the game of football is a whole nother level. And I've been just very blessed with some older coaches that, Bob Suttons and Rex Ryan and Mike Pettin, just a lot of these guys that were just great ball coaches that I got to be around when I was young and kind of taught me the game of football. So I'm very blessed in that way.
Two more questions.
What's the biggest key in terms of containing Justin Herbert?
That's a big one. It's a big one. We're talking about just about every second, it seems like, throughout the day. The stats don't lie. He's, when he extends plays, which he's second in the NFL, in scrambling and extension of throwing the ball, he's really dang good in both categories. And it's just, we talk about every rush lanes, and we're gonna have different disguises and looks and all these different kinds of rushes. But again, just understanding where he likes to get out, and when he does get out, where does he go? And I don't get too deep into all that stuff. I don't know if they're watching, but it's a big thing. It's probably their top thing on offense, and it's a challenge every week. It seems like, and his challenge is, he's big too. He's hard to bring down, and we've got to be, on top of our rush lanes and understanding all that type stuff, because it can change a game quick. The game's on the line. The ball's going to be in his hands, and so we've got to understand that in playoffs, and everything's multiplied by 10. And so, but yes, man, we've been stressing the heck out of that. Been in my meetings or something?
Spying.
Been spying in on me?
Spying.
But you mentioned Justin's big and hard to bring down.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prepare for that? Do you prepare any differently for it?
We have our normal rushes that we do every week, and how we prepare and drills and stuff. But there, like I said, there's certain ways that he looks to get out. There's certain things that we work on drill wise on our level rushes and what might work better versus this tackle because he's a little bit lighter versus this tackle. He might be a little bit more of a lunge guy. Off of the certain moves that we're going to do that week, what level rushes are come off of that. And then there's just certain pressures. We might give this look. This guy might be here. We might have to get here. And so it's quite a bit that really goes into it when you know, it's just not just 4 guys rushing and then you just figure out how to capture the guy. It may look like that sometimes and it's not. You might be screaming at the TV or at the game, but there's a lot that goes into it for both the coaches and the players.
Thanks,
So,
Mike.
thank you guys.
Thanks, Coach.
We'll see you this
Stage, right? It's just a new challenge versus a new opponent who's good at what they do.
Does not knowing, I mean, Omarion didn't practice, you know, his availability, does that change anything? Him playing or not playing?
I mean, the big thing is their offense is going to remain consistent. Like, obviously, he's been a good player for him, but their system is what they run, and they present issues with their run game regardless of who's getting the carries.
Yeah.
Anytime you get more of your starters back, it's always going to be good, but the expectation doesn't change. I mean, you get your good players back, and they need to play well for us to be able to win. So getting those guys back is great, but we still have the guys that are in there need to play well. Right? Barmore, and Corey, and Eric, and those guys, they're going to need to play well for us to be successful.
I mean, it almost goes without saying that, you know, the key, you want to make a team one-dimensional. You want to make them pass. But again, against this team, given their challenges on the offensive line, maybe it's even more of a key to try and make them one-dimensional. So you have Justin throwing the football and you taking advantage of that line.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. Like, and we talked about this today. Like the postseason resets everything. Like, we haven't got any stops this postseason. So whatever's happened in the last 18 weeks, that has nothing to do with what needs to happen this Sunday. So we're out to just go and play the way that we need to play, and we have expectations that we need to live up to on Sunday night.
Good by me. Thank you.